Okay, let's set the scene. It's the morning of May 7th, 2025. Really early. Dawn's just breaking for some people.
Uh-huh.
Others, still dark. But while most of us were, still asleep or maybe just waking up, something huge was happening.
Something extraordinary, really. Operation Sindoor.
Exactly. Operation Sindoor. Sounds almost like, I don't know, a movie title, doesn't it?
Hmm.
High-octane stuff.
It really does. But this was far from fiction. Very real, very precise. An operation carried out by India.
And not out of the blue either.
Yeah.
This was planned meticulously.
Absolutely. It wasn't just a random act. This was, well, it was India's response to that horrific terror attack in Pahalgam. That was back on April 22nd, 2025.
God, that was awful. We have to remember the people involved.
You really do. The human cost. It was staggering. 26 lives lost. Just like that. 25 Indians and one Nepali citizen, too.
And the location itself, Pahalgam's by Zuran Valley. It's meant to be this incredibly beautiful, peaceful place.
That's what makes it even more jarring, isn't it? You picture serenity, maybe tourism, and then violence. It's supposed to be a place for peace.
Such a stark contrast. And that's really what we want to get into today, right? We're going beyond just the headlines about Operation Sindoor.
Yeah, we need to unpack it. Look at the why behind it all, not just the whats. Understand what it actually signifies.
We've pulled together quite a bit of information, different perspectives to try and piece it together.
And as always, we want to explore what this means for you listening right now. What's the bigger picture here?
Okay, so let's rewind a bit to April 22nd, the trigger for all this, the Pahalgam attack.
Right. Try to picture it. Zuran Valley, beautiful scenic Kashmir, a spot popular with tourists, people just wanting to experience that natural beauty.
And then suddenly that peace is just shattered. Brutal violence out of nowhere for those who were there.
It becomes horribly real when you think about the individuals, people on holiday, families.
Yeah. And we heard about Navy Lieutenant Vinay Narwal. He was one of the victims.
That story really hit hard. And the image of his wife, the Sindoor, it was just incredibly raw, really drove home the human tragedy of it all.
Such immense grief. And India quickly pointed fingers, didn't they?
They did. The assessment linked it directly to terror groups based in Pakistan, specifically Jaish-e-Mohammed and Lashkar-e-Taiba.
These are some names we've heard before, unfortunately.
Yes, and it just highlights that ongoing issue. Cross-border terrorism. It turned what should have been, a dream trip for some into an absolute nightmare.
And you could feel the mood shift in India. Grief, yes, but also anger. A demand for action.
Definitely. The government promised retribution, which, well, leads us straight to Operation Sindoor, the night of May 6th, bleeding into the early hours of May 7th.
That timing again. 1:44 a.m., May 7th. It's deliberate, right?
Oh, absolutely. Think about it. Most people are asleep. Minimal activity. It suggests, covert action, keeping it under wraps until it was done.
Creates that clandestine feel, for sure.
Yeah.
And this wasn't just one branch of the military acting alone.
No. This was a joint effort. Army, Navy, Air Force, all working together.
Like the Avengers assembling, maybe? Minus the capes, perhaps?
Maybe something like that, but definitely with some seriously advanced tech. Real-world tech, though.
Right. They used specific weapons, didn't they? Scalp missiles, hammer bombs.
Exactly. Scalp cruise missiles and hammer precision-guided bombs. These aren't just dumb bombs. They're designed for accuracy, to hit specific targets.
High-tech precision stuff. The aim being.
To minimize collateral damage, presumably, to be very specific about what was hit.
And where were these targets? Across Pakistan.
9 locations, reportedly. Across Pakistan and also Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, or PoK, as it's often called.
Okay, 9 spots. Which ones?
The list included places like Bahalpur, Murid-K, Muzaffarabad, Kotli, Gulpur, Vimber, Chekamru, Sialkot, and Big.
Some of those names ring a bell. Bahawalpur.
And
That's linked to Jaish-e-Mohammed, isn't it?
It has been, yes, for a long time. And Jaish, of course, implicated in the Pahalgam attack. And Murid-K is often cited as the headquarters for Lashkar-e-Taiba.
Lashkar. Linked to Pahalgam, too. And notoriously, the 2008 Mumbai attacks. So the targets weren't random.
Doesn't seem like it. They seem specifically chosen based on alleged links to the groups India holds responsible.
But India was careful about what they hit at those locations, right?
That's what they emphasized. The Ministry of Defense called the operation focused, measured, and non-escalatory. That's key language. Meaning they explicitly stated they did not target any Pakistani military facilities. The focus, they claimed, was purely on terrorist infrastructure.
So dismantle the terror capabilities, but try not to provoke a full-blown war. Is that the idea?
That seems to be the stated intention, a very careful balancing act, if that's the case.
And how did we find out about this initially?
Well, pretty quickly, reports started surfacing on social media from Pakistan, people talking about explosions, power outages, especially in places like Muzaffarabad.
The digital age. News travels fast.
Very fast. And then, not long after, the Indian Army put out a statement on X, formerly Twitter. Quite a punchy one.
What did it say?
Ready to strike, train to win. And it came with a video showing their capabilities. It was a strong message.
And Defense Minister Rajnath Singh added his voice too.
Yes, with a very resounding Bharat Mata Ki Jai, victory to Mother India, captured the national mood for many, I imagine.
Okay, so India makes its move, puts out its message. How did Pakistan respond?
Yeah.
Predictably, I guess.
Pretty forcefully, yes. Pakistan's Prime Minister, Shahbaz Sharif, came out strong. He called it an act of war, promised retaliation.
An act of war, strong words. Did they give their own version of events?
They did. Their military spokesperson, Lieutenant General Ahmed Sharif Chaudhry, presented a different picture. He claimed only 6 sites were actually hit.
6, not 9.
According to Pakistan, yes. And they reported 8 casualties, specifically saying that included civilians. They also made a pretty bold claim.
Which was?
That they'd shot down 5 Indian fighter jets and a drone involved in the operation.
Wow. 5 jets and a drone.
Mm-hmm.
That's huge, if true. How did India react to that claim?
Swift denial. India flatly refuted it. High-level sources were quoted saying absolutely no aircraft were lost.
And NSA Ajit Doval, he spoke to his U.S. counterpart.
Yes, reports indicated he spoke with the U.S. Secretary of State, assuring him that the targets were only terrorist infrastructure. No civilian sites, no military targets hit, according to India.
So right away you have these completely conflicting stories. A war of narratives starting.
Exactly. Accusations of fake news and disinformation started flying almost immediately. It becomes very hard to know the ground truth in that fog.
And what about the immediate fallout, things people would notice?
Well, air travel got hit hard very quickly. Airports in northern India, Srinagar, Jammu, Leh, Amritsar, several others, they were shut down temporarily.
And Pakistan?
Same thing on their side. Lahore, Sialkot airports closed. Major airlines like Air India, Indigo, they had to cancel flights.
So right there you see the impact on ordinary people. Travel plans up in smoke, disruptions.
Absolutely. It brings it home, doesn't it? This isn't just military maneuvers. It affects daily life.
Did the tension stop there? Or did it spill over elsewhere?
It didn't stop. There were reports soon after of heavy shelling by Pakistan's army along the line of control the loss.
Whereabouts?
Primarily in the Poonch and Rajouri sectors of Kashmir. And tragically, the Indian Army reported that this shelling resulted in the deaths of 3 Indian civilians.
Oh no. So civilians caught in the crossfire again. How did India respond to the shelling?
India said it responded proportionately. That word suggests a tit-for-tat kind of retaliation, trying not to escalate further, but definitely firing back.
Okay, so tensions remain high on the loss fee. What about the rest of the world? How did they react? The UN?
The UN Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, weighed in, expressed concern, which is pretty standard diplomatic language, urged both sides to show maximum military restraint.
Did the Security Council get involved?
Yes. They held closed-door talks. Pakistan had requested the meeting. Shows the level of international concern.
And the U.S.? Anyone else?
Well, former U.S. President Donald Trump made a comment, called the situation a shame, said he hoped it would end quickly.
Right. Thanks for the insight, Don.
Well, it reflects a sort of wait-and-see approach from some parts of the international community, perhaps.
So, pulling back a bit,
Mm-hmm.
why does all this matter to someone maybe listening far away from the region? Why should you care?
That's the crucial question. It's easy to see this as just another chapter in the long, complicated India-Pakistan story. But it's rooted in decades of history, especially around Kashmir.
Right. Kashmir, always the flashpoint.
It really is. And you have these deeply entrenched narratives, India consistently accusing Pakistan of backing terrorists who cross the border, Pakistan denying it, raising its own issues. It's complex.
So the Pahalgam attack wasn't just an isolated incident in that sense. It landed on very fertile ground for conflict.
Exactly. It felt like perhaps for India it was a final straw. Maybe diplomatic pressure wasn't seen as working.
So Operation Sindoor becomes what? A message.
It certainly seems intended as one, a very strong message against cross-border terrorism, against using it as a tool, but also by claiming they only hit terror targets.
They were also sending a message of restraint. We can hit you, but we're choosing not to hit your military.
That could be the interpretation, yes. Trying to signal resolve without triggering an all-out war. It's a fine line.
But the big questions linger, don't they? Will Pakistan feel forced to escalate further? Could this spiral?
Absolutely. That's the million-dollar question, or perhaps billion-dollar, given the stakes. How will the international community really lean in, especially with other crises like Ukraine demanding attention?
And for people living there or even just traveling,
Hmm.
the impact is immediate.
Definitely. We mentioned the flight cancellations, but think about the general feeling. Heightened security. Schools were closed in some border districts in India, like Jammu and Samba.
And that civil defense drill, that must have felt ominous, happening on the same day.
It certainly adds to the atmosphere, doesn't it? A nationwide drill for preparedness. It underlines the tension, the feeling that people need to be ready for anything.
Let's just take a breath here. We've talked strategy, targets, reactions. But we need to circle back to the human cost.
Yes. It's so easy to get lost in the geopolitics and forget the real people affected. Those 26 lives lost in Pahalgam, the family shattered.
We mentioned Lateef Vinay Narwal earlier. The sheer tragedy.
It bears repeating. He was reportedly in Kashmir to celebrate his wedding. A moment of pure joy turned into unimaginable sorrow.
And that image of his wife.
Yeah.
The Sindoor. It's just heartbreaking.
It is, and it makes the name Operation Sindoor seem very deliberate, a tribute, perhaps, a symbol of that loss, that violation. It carries a lot of weight.
A powerful, poignant name, but we also have to acknowledge the other side's claims, right? Pakistan alleging civilian casualties from the strikes.
We do. They mention casualties, including a child in Bahawalpur, I believe. India denies hitting civilians, of course.
And verifying these things in the middle of it all.
Yeah.
It's incredibly difficult. The fog of war is real.
It really is. But it's a crucial reminder. Any conflict, any strike, it has human consequences on all sides. There are families in Pakistan affected by this too, living with the fear and uncertainty. Their stories often get lost.
So, if we try to sum up Operation Sindoor, what's the takeaway?
Well, it looks like India's decisive, high-tech answer to the Pahalgam attack. An attempt to deliver, well, what they would call justice.
Justice is served, as the Army's message seemed to imply.
Right. But done in a way, they argue, that Pahalgam tried to avoid a wider war by being precise, by being non-escalatory.
The costs are always involved. Always.
Absolutely. Disrupted lives, that heightened tension we talked about, civilian casualties tragically reported on both sides of the loss, and that constant simmering risk of things getting worse. It's a very precarious situation.
It really is.
So as we think about all this, it's important to remember everyone involved. The soldiers carrying out orders, the families grieving in India after Pahalgam, the civilians caught in the middle on both sides of the border. You just have to hope for, well, for a path towards peace eventually, somehow.
Hope is essential. So for everyone listening, stay informed, stay aware, and maybe, yeah, keep an eye on those travel updates if you're heading that way. Jai Hind.
So, Operation Sindoor, a major event. A precisely executed military response, yes, but one with immediate fallout and potentially huge long-term ripples across the region.
And it leaves us with this thought, doesn't it? Think about that tightrope walk. A nation trying to respond to terror, to deliver justice for its people, but in a region armed with nuclear weapons. How do you strike that balance between justice and avoiding catastrophe? And what role does or should the rest of the world play in keeping that balance? Something to really consider.